Great, we're set to go. I know I'm depriving you of investing in your sleep capital, your post-lunch sleep capital, so I apologise for that. Okay, good afternoon, esteemed colleagues, and thank you for welcoming me to this pivotal discussion. Many people ask why, as a population health researcher, I'm so preoccupied with economic policies. And I hope today I can make a case for why we all should be. And for the critical importance of coming together in the push to achieve wellbeing economies. So I've spent most of my research career undertaking complex systems modelling and simulation, and particularly in mental health. And this work has been undertaken in partnership with a diverse range of stakeholders and consumers with lived experience, and of course also funders, to understand where and how we can invest to achieve real impact. And one of the most important insights from this work has been that while strengthening our health systems is crucial for providing quality and timely care, it's not enough to make a significant impact at a population level. And this is because the inflow of people with mental health challenges driven by our social environments is far exceeding the system's capacity to achieve recovery. Even high-income countries have struggled to meet high and persistent demand for services. So this challenge has led researchers to focus and advocates to focus additionally on the many upstream social determinants, and you heard about that a little bit this morning. Meanwhile, policymakers and funders are challenged by the complexity of the problem and overwhelmed by calls to fund the many programs and initiatives advocated to address each of the social determinants. That lack of focus is also further exacerbated by these comprehensive action plans, presenting laundry lists of actions compiled by extensive consultation processes. So governments invest in a little bit of everything and not enough in any one thing. They spread finite resources too thinly and failed to deliver significant population-level impacts, which has resulted in little progress in mental health over decades. In continuing this approach, are we missing an opportunity to come together as a public health community to address a key root cause that will have benefits across the diverse areas that we all work in? And I'll give you an example and focus a little bit on youth mental health. Economic policies can have unintended consequences that directly and indirectly affect youth mental health. For example, while industrial relations reforms implemented since the 1980s and 90s in advanced economies have improved business flexibility, they've also resulted in increased job insecurity, intensified work pressures, and reduced the financial security of households. While deregulation of the financial sector has created a more competitive financial system, along with other economic policies, in some countries it has seen household debt soar. These have knock-on effects of increasing parental stress, family conflict, disengagement, and can increase the risk of drug and alcohol abuse and domestic violence, all of which deeply affect youth mental health. Research has shown that unemployment and underemployment are direct contributors to our suicide rates, yet labour underutilisation among young people in Australia has reached 25%. Last year, 9 in 10 young Australians reported experiencing financial difficulties. 70% were struggling to find affordable housing, and 20% were experiencing food insecurity. And these challenges are not unique to Australia, with similar reports coming out of the US, the UK, Canada, China, and countries across Europe and Africa and more. It is clear that young people today are facing vastly different structural pressures compared to previous generations. Economic policies can also create environments characterised by scarcity, insecurity, inequality, high competition and a focus on individualism, which breeds self-interest, distrust, disconnection, and reduced social cohesion and community support. Coupled with the existential uncertainties of generative AI-driven job displacement and climate change, there is fertile ground for youth mental health problems to continue, which is outpacing the capacity of our treatment systems to respond. We will not be able to effectively and sustainably address the youth mental health problem until we understand that economic policy is unequivocally mental health policy. There is no instrument more powerful in changing the course of a nation's mental health trajectory. And the international community agrees. In May this year, I had the privilege of being invited to attend the 77th World Health Assembly, where member states overwhelmingly endorsed a special resolution to recognise the inextricable link between economic policies and health, including mental health, and to work to realign economic health with the well-being of ecosystems, communities and individuals. This resolution marks a significant milestone in the global wellbeing economy movement, which formally began in 2018 with the establishment of the Wellbeing Economy Governments Partnership. This partnership was initiated by Scotland, Ireland and New Zealand, and later joined by other countries including Wales, Finland and Australia. These nations are pioneering efforts to measure prosperity beyond GDP by incorporating a broad range of indicators including life satisfaction, educational attainment, health, income inequality and environmental sustainability into their national frameworks and budgets. While wellbeing economy indicator dashboards importantly provide rich information on the various dimensions of population wellbeing, with upwards of 50 different indicators, they fall short of offering a clear picture of progress in the way GDP does. As a result, GDP remains the privileged indicator, with its growth the primary objective, and investments to foster social and environmental wellbeing secondary objectives if nations can afford it. This is a major barrier to progress towards wellbeing economies. So how do we begin to overcome this barrier? What the last 60 years has showed us is just how powerful a single metric can be in shaping our world. Since the founding meeting of the OECD in December 1960, which firmly established economic growth as the foremost global objective, GDP has become entrenched as the top-line indicator of a government's good management of their economies and well-being of their nations. Economists and governments have devised policies and reforms to enhance economic efficiency and optimise macroeconomic structures to achieve that consistent growth in GDP. But an overemphasis on optimising one system has destabilised other interconnected systems, giving rise to a broad range of symptoms we now recognise as the social determinants of health and mental health. We have been in such ruthless pursuit of greater and greater consumption, economic efficiency and worker productivity to achieve that continuous growth in GDP that our health, political, environmental and social systems are now showing significant signs of deterioration and fragility. So today we face polycrises that will have profound impacts on our way of life and on our very capacity to respond resiliently to looming global threats. For example, as we approach the carrying capacity of our environmental systems, a scarcity mindset is manifesting a sense of insecurity and anxiety about the future. A scarcity mindset gives rise to a hypervigilance to threats, to distrust of each other, to disconnection and fear, which is exploited by the political classes, leading to polarisation and a general breakdown of cooperation. In contrast, a wellbeing economy is prosperous both economically and socially. So tracking overall progress and designing policy to catalyse a transition to a wellbeing economy requires our system of national accounts to measure not just economic production, but also social production. Social production is the glue that holds complex societies together. It includes unpaid activities such as volunteering, caregiving, ecological restoration, informal mentoring and civic participation. Activities that contribute to the strengthening of our social fabric. Social production gives people a sense of belonging and purpose and connectedness that fosters mental health. It supports our ability to be productive in the formal economy. It improves environmental well-being, and it gives us surge capacity to respond effectively in times of crisis. In essence, social production makes nations more prosperous and more resilient. For young people, supported engagement in socially productive activities can offer meaningful social roles and an opportunity to develop a positive self-concept, empathy, a sense of purpose and community connectedness, which can improve their mental health and well-being, their pro-social behaviours and their life satisfaction. So measuring, monitoring and regularly reporting on social production alongside GDP will help shift the public and policy narratives from a focus on GDP growth alone to a focus on achieving greater balance between economic and social production. And this new narrative can actually open the doors to innovative solutions to rebuilding the social fabric, the brain capital and the mental wealth of nations. Two ideas offer particular promise. The first is the social production wage. So the social production wage offers a living wage in exchange for engagement in socially productive activities. Unlike traditional welfare, the social production wage would strengthen community cohesion, promote inclusivity, contribute to tackling the loneliness epidemic, and enhance both social and economic productivity. It would also reduce welfare stigma and promote a sense of productive purpose by engaging people in activities that they are most suited to and are passionate about. Time banks are another interesting idea. The time bank allows individuals to earn time credits by providing social production-related activities or services to others, which they can then use to access services they might need in the future. Building on successful local implementations in countries like the UK, Japan and New Zealand, a nationwide rollout of time banks could systematically embed engagement in and monitoring of social production. Time banks foster reciprocity and community resilience. They can reduce social isolation. They can address workforce shortages in the care sector. And they can bridge informal and formal economies to strengthen societal well-being and mobilise workforces in times of crisis. I'm proud to launch our paper, which you can access at the QR code, written with Harris and other co-authors on the potential of national time banks to support wellbeing economies. Now, a common question people ask is how these sorts of social initiatives or social protections might be funded without governments going into substantially greater debt. And one solution promoted by Mariana Mazzucato is the concept of the entrepreneurial state. This strategy suggests that governments should retain equity or a share of returns from their investments in research and innovation rather than solely being the risk takers for these investments while the markets reap the benefits. For example, public sector funding has contributed to key technologies in the iPhone, such as the internet, GPS, touchscreen displays and Siri. Government investments have also led to life-saving pharmaceuticals and advancements in renewable energy technologies, and even improvements in baby formula. Retaining returns from the investments would enable governments to reinvest in social protections, in education, in healthcare, and further research and development, creating a brain-positive feedback loop. So, in conclusion, we are at a pivotal moment in history that calls for a new approach. The thinking and tools that guided us through the 20th century are simply not suited to the challenges and threats of the 21st century. Wellbeing economies are crucial for achieving progress on mental health and fostering brain capital across the life course. However, shifting the entrenched economic narrative and framework will require more than the efforts of progressive economists alone. Mental health and brain health scientists and advocates have a critical role to play alongside economists. in the design of brain-positive policy and legislation, in the implementation of new metrics, in advocacy for systemic investing, and in community mobilisation for change. We must push beyond our disciplinary boundaries to reshape economies that will foster health and wellbeing for all. Thank you.